Airheads is a 1994 American comedy film directed by Michael Lehmann, starring Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and Adam Sandler. Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and once again, I'm joined by this rocker, Mr. Jason Alt.
Hey, everybody. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Lehman. I'm Jason Alt.
That's right. There's so many rock films. There's so many rock comedies out there. Why did we hone in on 1994's Airheads?
How did you morons even get in here? They've got electronic locks on all the doors.
Oh, we had to break in.
You guys got this place sealed up like a dolphin's butt.
Watertight.
Because it didn't make any money, and that's not fair.
It really didn't. Yeah, $11 million budget, and I couldn't believe I heard some rumblings about that. It's like, where did the budget go? Blah, blah, blah. Have you seen this fucking cast? What do you mean, where's the budget?
Yeah. Everybody must have worked the SAG rate for this movie, for this to get made for $11 million. I realize there's one set, basically, but still.
Like a perfect timing. You weren't getting Jim Carrey in 96. That would have demanded like 8 times this movie.
Brendan Fraser would have gotten $11 million for this movie in 1998.
Yeah, like the Mummy money, right? But Steve Buscemi was just coming off of Reservoir Dogs. Brendan Fraser just coming off of Encino Man. Adam Sandler and Chris Farley. Well, Chris Farley was coming out of SNL at this point.
Yeah.
And then you had Adam Sandler just taking anything. Like, his manager was famously calling Michael Lehmann and just bugging him, being like, hey, Sandler wants a role. He wants this role. Like, we got to get him in the film.
Yeah.
Can we do it? And what do you know? I don't think I haven't said this a lot, but I think Sandler got like the best lines. I think he was one of the bright spots of this film.
Okay, who are you guys?
My name's Pip.
The band. The band name.
Sorry about that.
I think everybody played their type well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Steve Buscemi archetype kind of emerged here, where he's like not the leader, but he's not the fuck up either. He's just sort of like Mr. Pink in this movie.
Hey, look, you just shut your pie hole and keep working.
Pie hole. What's that supposed to be? Some kind of cracker slang?
Why did Steve Buscemi look at a picture of what he looked like with the long hair and the beard and be like, yeah, I'm shaving this off? Like, what? You look great. Everyone talks about how weird you look all the time, and he looks fucking badass with long hair and a beard. And he's like, yeah, never again. I don't get it. I don't understand.
He looks just like the bases of Pantera. And it was crazy.
Steve Buscemi looks awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. It's a choice. He's too powerful. It doesn't matter what he looks like. He can come to my house and fuck my wife tonight. I don't know why I'm weird looking.
Jason, what is Airheads about?
Airheads is about a couple of rapscallions. It's some real knuckleheads.
Here, you run around your apartment all day in your fudgies. That's not true. It is true. I always gotta tell you to put pants on when somebody comes over. He's making this up! Will you both shut up?
Airheads is about a band called the Lone Rangers. Bad name.
Such a good it's such a good joke ongoing through the whole movie.
The Lone Rangers? That's original. How can you pluralize the Lone Ranger?
What's wrong with that?
Well, there's 3 of you. You're not exactly lone. Shouldn't you be the 3 Rangers?
No idea what you're saying right now.
Yeah. They're struggling, right? They're struggling to get noticed. Brendan Fraser's girlfriend is mad at him because he's lazy to her. Even though he's really busting his ass getting this demo tape made, nobody wants to play it. You can't send unsolicited demo tapes anymore, because if a studio accepts an unsolicited demo, you're like, oh, hey, your song is just like that thing I sent you. So he can't get his song played. There's bands that they're beating in Battle of Bands contests who just like their demo happens to get played on the radio and then they get a record contract. He's sick of seeing this happen to all the bands around him, and he can't get anybody to take him seriously. So he starts sneaking into record companies and trying to hand the executives copy of his demo tape. Finally, he takes matters into his own hands, and, he and his bandmates break into a radio station, and they hold the radio station crew hostage. And get them to play the tape on the radio so they can get a record contract. The thing is, they don't realize that what they're doing is, a felony.
Yeah.
And so they start to feel bad because they're like, oh, we're not like criminals. And so they get in a weird sort of situation where everybody in the station is technically a hostage, but they're all kind of pulling for them. So it's a weird situation where, especially the DJ played by Joe Mantegna, everybody's really sympathetic to these underdogs. And, despite committing many, many crimes, everybody seems to want them to get their song played on the radio. And it has an ending. It's a comedy, so the narrative doesn't really have to make that much sense. The plot is just a vehicle for more funnies. So Airheads, if the premise sounds stupid, the movie's stupid. It doesn't matter. It's a deeply stupid movie, and I love it.
And if you think you've heard this premise before, yes, Empire Records is also a movie. But yeah, is there anything more antiquated now in 2022 looking back, and these kids are willing to commit crimes and create or do hostage takeovers just to get their song heard on the radio? It's so charming, right? Like it's so.
Yeah. But not like the internet makes everything in this movie obsolete. It's like, we can't play your demo tape because we don't have the equipment. Oh, what about the internet? Well, you can't get your song played. What about the internet?
Yeah.
The internet solves all the problems of this movie, which is kind of why it seems really dated. Because you're like, oh, our demo tape's not the right format.
We can't play this tape. We're only set up for CDs and cassettes.
Chaz, I said we should have brought a cassette.
The cassette dub knocks out the low end and it makes my background vocals sound like someone's stepping on my nuts.
God, Mr. Perfectionist.
I think, yes, like you said, the plot is kind of like, who cares? Even the jokes, for the most part, I mean, there is some chuckles to be had, but for the most part, what I go back for this movie is just the monster cast. Is to see, it's this time capsule to see where these people that like from top to bottom. I'm not just saying the three leads. It is
this movie
everyone.
Has two Ghostbusters. This has more Ghostbusters than the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah. That's true. Your nod to Spinal Tap, because that, on the hierarchy of rocker movies, I think Spinal Tap is the holy grail, right? That, I mean, literally, that is the cult
and
classic.
McKeon plays such an opposite of his Spinal Tap archetype too.
Yeah.
He's just such a versatile comedy guy. He's such a good straight man in every comedy, and I don't know why, because he's so funny, but he just really works as a foil. And I think maybe once you master being funny, understanding comedy enough to really work as a comedic foil, I think just shows your mastery. I'm just kidding. Acting's really easy.
Oh, Jesus.
Mike McKeon's good. I like him. He's funny in this.
Wait a minute. I don't see why you automatically have to choose a woman. Well, it's kind of sexist, don't you think? I mean, we could draw straws.
I'm such on a Michael McKean thing too, because I'm currently in the middle of Better Call Saul, and he's the best part of that show.
He's the best part of that show.
Oh my God. Seeing this, I was just like, oh my God. Judd Nelson, that's a fun juxtaposition. Watch the Breakfast Club and then watch him as a total wiener in this.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was Judd Nelson until a couple of years ago. I probably hadn't even seen The Breakfast Club when I saw this movie.
He looks like Chino Marino from the Deftones in this. It's so
You're just going to make weird music references the whole time.
I am. But I mean, yeah. Well, it's on theme.
You've referenced 8 bands and 1 movie about rock.
Rob Zombie, and fun fact that White Zombie did all of the music for the actual bands that were playing. So when the Lone Rangers are playing their music finally, that's all White Zombie handling the instruments, with Brendan Fraser actually singing, which I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, sometimes you can tell it's not them, but he did a good job.
Michael Richards was right.
He was kind of Kramery in this movie. Yeah.
If I'm gonna be honest, he was the worst part for me. Something about him anyways bothers me.
He was there to develop Marshall Bell's character. Michael Richards had to crawl around in a vent so people could think it was funny that Marshall Bell, the guy who always plays a cop or a soldier, got to have the best jokes.
So she says to me,
He was only cleaning the pool filter, Sniggles.
and I'm thinking to myself, it's 7 p.m., he's in dungarees, and his equipment is bone dry.
Pool filter my ass.
Thing is, she could have left me for a plastic surgeon or something. But a lousy pool cleaner.
Yeah.
Because his life is falling apart, sort of. And he
Yeah.
finds out that Pip fucked his wife. Like, the whole thing is, the whole thing's great. Every time I look at Marshall Bell, I'm like, man, what's that guy in? And then it's like, oh, he was in Total Recall. He played Quado? I thought Michael Ironside played Quado. Shit. I think this guy's Michael Ironside. Well, he was in Starship Troopers. No, I thought Michael Ironside was in Starship Troopers. What's going on? And it turns out they just did all these movies together. So it's like, I think I can't tell those two guys apart, but they don't look that similar. I think I'm crazy. And then I went to IMDb. It's like, oh, they were both in both those movies?
Turns out you can be right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah, I seriously remembered Michael Ironside as Quado in Total Recall. I would have bet $1,000 it was him. And it's like, no, he was Richter. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, he lost his arms.
And then you have the guy that looks like Quado in real life. You had Kurt Loder. You have Lemmy does like God, that little cameo reminds me of it's like the Waterboy scene where he's like, you could do it, cut his fucking head off, like Rob Schneider, but it's Lemmy.
Yeah.
I was editor of the school magazine.
It's just such a weird placement for that.
There's so many cool little cameos in this movie.
The absolute nobodies, like Officer Samuels, who has what, 2 lines, is Alan Covert.
Yeah. Well, nobody knows who Alan Covert is now.
Yeah.
You're listening to this podcast and you're like, Alan Covert, and you look him up and you're like, oh, that guy that's in 40 Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah. It felt like an early Happy Madison production, like at the beginning. Steve Buscemi was in all of those early ones, all the way up to like Big Daddy. So you had him, you had Covert. David Arquette looks like he's 5 years old in this.
Bleach blonde David Arquette looks insane.
He looks like a Christian Slater, like weed stunt double or something.
He looks like the lead singer from 311.
Hey, you made it an obscure.
Yeah, that's what we're doing tonight.
I'm down with that.
Before he realized that he didn't look great with the white hair. But he still makes people call him the Nick Hex, probably.
Hey, DJ S.A. I don't know.
This is not a 311 appreciation podcast.
That's true.
We're going to go on the cruise, and we're going to get COVID.
This is
watching them play a 5-hour and 11-minute concert. We're just going to get so much COVID on a cruise ship.
What a beautiful disaster. Could do this all night. The best cameos, I think. And what, man, right on time. To talk about the peak of their powers, Beavis and Butthead. Jesus.
You're on the air.
Whoa. Am I on the air?
Come on, Butthead, give me the phone.
Am I speaking English? What'd I just say, dipshit?
Come on, Butthead, no way.
Shut up, Beavis.
You know what's so funny? Like, I would have been like 12 when I saw this on Cinemax or whatever it was on. Like there was a period of like 2 years wherever I turned on the TV, this was playing on one of the channels, which is why I like it so much. And I would have been like 12 or 13 when this is making the rounds on like Cinemax. And that would be like my peak of caring about Beavis and Butthead. So it's so funny that I completely forgot they called in, because I would have gotten the reference at the time. So
yeah,
it's really weird.
It's just packed so full. And like, that's when I was watching this again, you know, after what, like 20 years of not watching it. I was just like tickled to death by, it was just like super cameos every 2 seconds. But it wasn't
for any of it. I probably saw this movie 15 times in the 90s, and then I watch it now. I was like, I didn't appreciate any of this. That's fucking Judd Nelson.
Yep.
What? Yeah. Awesome. Develop some of the characters too. Like Chris Farley had 3 minutes of screen time, and he had an arc. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now what are you gonna do about that?
Improvise.
To be more assertive in 3 minutes.
And while still managing to be give a very Chris Farley-esque kind of role. I mean, he
was Beverly Hills Ninja exactly in this movie, but it's fine. I wanted Beverly Hills Ninja early and often in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
You just wanted Chris Farley to do the Chris Farley thing. But instead he did the John Belushi thing, and that's too bad.
Yeah. Well, you know what sucks is this isn't the movie. I mean, it's still a fun movie, and we'll get to the recommendations like to the end. But I you guys could probably guess if we're recommending this or not. But that being said, this wasn't the movie that Michael Lehmann wanted to make. He wanted to make a more edgier, grittier, darker, because he was a real he was a real punk rocker back in the day. He wanted like Johnny Rotten in this film. He wanted like Metallica. He wanted Testament, all these bands, and they all just refused because they're just like, nope, it's going through, it just got sold to 20th Century Fox. I think like Island Pictures owned it or something like that, and they sold it off. And then they had a brand new CEO at Fox, and he's just like, nope. He wouldn't even let Brendan Fraser wear leather pants. Like they dumped it down so much. Like Steve Buscemi showed up on set with a shirt that said "Blow Me." He's like, nope, all that's taken out. This was just
they wanted to make
down.
this PG-13. If he could have made this rated R. That guy knows his way around a rated R comedy.
Yes.
This is a guy who did Heathers and your favorite movie, Hudson Hawk.
Jesus
so,
Christ.
Yeah. This guy did 40 Days and 40 Nights, which was like, it had a cum shot coming out of a washing machine. So, right?
Yeah.
Like, this guy attempting PG-13 is a bit of a stretch, and I think he did fine.
The movie is watchable, but I could only imagine how much more fun it probably would have been if they just not even like went super raunchy. I'm not saying like Kevin Smith in the early 90s, but I'm just saying just a little bit more edge to it, because we are talking.
What could they have done and maintained PG-13?
Put like the water guns had piss instead of like hot sauce or something. I don't know. But just with a little more, I think you just put more of the rocker tropes, right? Like you put, girls flashing in the audience, or you let them say F-bombs and shit like that.
But all that gives you an R rating. So I think they did a very good job of making a movie that was funny without relying on any of the gratuity that is used as a crutch in 90s comedies that ultimately would have got it an R rating.
Yeah, that's
it's
fair.
Tough to make a PG-13 comedy and make it funny. And they did them in the 90s, and then they stopped.
Yeah. Well, they're not even making comedies anymore. They're like...
But you can't make a comedy for $11 million. Like, you got to pay Hannibal Buress $11 million to get him to even show up to the set of Tag. So, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, why would you make a movie that no one's going to watch because they'll wait for Netflix? Are you going to the theater to see the Game Night? Probably not. It looks just as good on your phone as it does on the big screen because it's a fucking comedy.
Yeah.
But like Judd Apatow and Adam McKay were like the only people making the comedies people were going to see, And once everybody got sick of, the 45th reskin of Anchorman, it's a tough sell to get people to pay $11 and go to the theater during COVID to see a comedy when you can just put it on Netflix right away.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
They are making it. It's just they're going straight to the streaming services, which is fine. It's a great place for them, and they have the money for it, and they can generate the audience for it by just putting it at the top of your recommendations. You're like, oh shit, Ali Wong, I'll watch this. So yeah, I get it. I think the streaming services changed the studio model a little bit for comedies, but that's fine. I think people would rather make a sketch show anyway, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's because cinematic comedies nowadays are MCU films or Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's like, you bring your kid, you need something to babysit your kids, and that's where you insert a few adult humor, a little bit of adult humor sprinkled in, or, in your Venom 2. And then they go, too far into the comedy range, and then that throws that whole thing off. So... I think there's a weird readjustment period right now that we're seeing in cinema where it's either way too much comedy injected in things that shouldn't have comedy, or it's just like everything super dark and dour and the Batman and depressing. So it's a weird deal. But like you said, streaming services now, you get stuff like Schitt's Creek, and you get comedies that get room to breathe and actually tell the joke. So it's actually a good thing too. It's just, you don't go the days of the Jim Carreys and shit like that demanding small countries worth of ransom are done, and that might be a good thing though.
Or they just end up in the MCU.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, we could put Kumail Nanjiani in a comedy where he's an Uber driver, or we could just like make him get super jacked and put him in a Marvel movie that as many people saw as saw Stuber.
Or Airheads, for that matter.
Well,
why do you think this failed so hard?
Because they didn't have a $120 million budget and spend $60 million on marketing.
Yeah.
This is a PG-13 comedy. As much as we love this whole cast now, no one was going to a movie to see Steve Buscemi in 1994.
Sure.
Like, who was the draw in this movie? This was Brendan Fraser, like, ramping up to being Brendan Fraser, but, like, who's the draw? Is it Adam Sandler? I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Everybody in this movie is a sidekick. They made a movie with all sidekicks.
Yeah.
This was like Brendan Fraser's audition film for The Mummy. As much as he kind of did a ton of serious stuff before this, that was all very good. You know?
That's so Michael Lehmann, too, because, like, think about where the cast was from Heathers at the time of making Heathers.
Oh, yeah.
And even Hudson Hawk. Like, he just had this way of finding talent, whether they were just about to explode or...
Because that was Bruce Willis trying to, like, get back into comedy a little bit.
Just like Joe Mantegna in this.
Yeah.
Who knows if he really had... Maybe we're giving him too much credit as far as the casting goes, but I would imagine that he had some say in it, right? Like, he just had a good way to find these, like, diamonds just on the bubble. It's just, unfortunately for him and the box office numbers, they were too like before they were blowing up, I guess.
Yeah, but if this movie had made a ton of money, we wouldn't be talking about it right now. So, like, I don't think we need to belabor the fact that it didn't make money. If it had made money, it wouldn't be a cult film, but this is absolutely a cult film.
And the fact that, Michael Lehmann's done 9 films and we've already talked about, this is the 3rd film. I mean, that's pretty good. He's kind of I don't know, I don't say underrated, but he is very good at making these cult films.
I think everybody on the planet will agree that Dr. Pepper tastes better than Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola is the most popular beverage in the world, even though a lot of other beverages taste better. So if you're Michael Lehmann and you're making Dr. Pepper, a lot of people really like Dr. Pepper, but he doesn't know the recipe for Coca-Cola. Does that make sense? He knows how to make the shit out of some Dr. Pepper. And then a small number of people like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever tasted. And everybody else, like, sort of knows that, but won't acknowledge it. And they're like, I think old school is the best comedy. So I'm not saying this is a great movie. I'm saying he continues to make underdog movies that, like, cult film fans latch onto. I mean, if we do Heathers, that's his first 3 movies.
Yeah.
Without us even really making that connection until now.
Right.
Because I didn't be like, oh, we got to do Airheads because we did Hudson Hawk. We just did Hudson Hawk because Hudson Hawk is a crazy cult movie. And it's unfortunate you didn't like it, but, you're wrong, and I hate you. So...
And it's so funny that Heathers is such a monster of a cult film that I just assumed that we covered it, and I forgot we haven't done an episode on it yet. So I guess this is technically
but like at the time,
one.
Heathers wasn't like, it was just such a weird movie.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying Airheads was ahead of its time the way Heathers was. Certainly not.
Well, okay, well that goes back to it because that shows you asked what would be different as far as if this was a rated R film, but look at what he can do with rated R films. Heather is a fucking monster. It was such a great movie. It was, and I think that, like, he started out with Heathers and then Hudson Hawk, even though I give it a ton of shit, but, like, his first couple of films were so cynical, and then this felt like a real change. Like, it was just biting satire in Hudson Hawk and Heathers, and then once you got here, the studio took over, but everything he kind of did after this was kind of
TV.
More in this, it was more in this realm.
He did TV because he didn't want to deal with the fucking studios screwing up his vision. I'm sure that this movie frustrated him a lot.
Yeah. This was his Dune.
Yeah, so either, like, he laid a turd and the studios didn't want to touch him, or he didn't want to touch the studios. Whatever happened, this movie kind of caused his divorce with Hollywood, but, like, all the TV he made was real good. Not all of it, but, like, he did fine. He made some good stuff, and he directed a lot of episodes of a lot of your favorite shows.
Yeah.
And most people don't even know that. Larry Sanders, True Blood, Californication, what's that? American Horror Story.
Yeah, it's bangers. I mean,
a lot of TV.
And it shows a really good breadth of diverse storytelling too. He did comedy. I don't know. It's so weird because I cannot stand Hudson Hawk so much, and I just don't think that any of the comedy in that works. But I could tell. I don't know how much I blame him for that, and how much I just don't like Bruce Willis. So he has a very.
If you don't like
voice.
Bruce Willis, I could see Hudson Hawk just being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because he's John McClane in that movie.
Yeah.
But the movie was made to suit John McClane. So they put that character, that ridiculous character, in another setting, and it looked ridiculous. And I think that was the point.
Sure. But Airheads, like, who would you recommend going back for this film? Would you recommend people going back?
If you're 14, watch Airheads.
If you're 14 now or 14 and 19?
I don't know. I don't know. If you're 14 now, you won't. None of this will make sense. You're like, what's a tape deck? Why didn't they just have an MP3 of their this movie is super duper dated without meaning to be, because this movie was about how the record industry sucks. And the record industry is not like this anymore. It's different and worse in so many ways. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of gatekeeping. And this movie is about how everybody kind of likes an underdog. And these are underdogs that were desperate and did whatever they needed to do to just get all the gatekeepers out of the way. They brought the music directly to the people. And while the specific setting of that kind of story is very dated, because it has the particular machine that they raged against doesn't exist in its current form anymore. So it's an artifact of that time, but at the same time, it's a David and Goliath story at heart, and I think people will respond to that. I think if you are 14 now, you will like the level of humor, but it will be so lost on you that maybe not. I think the people who would like this movie the most were people who were 14 in 1994. If you were a millennial, this movie is for you, because you will recognize all of these things. You will be nostalgic for some of them. You'll get all the references, but also you'll be like, holy shit, I saw this movie, I saw half of it on USA, censored, back in 1995, and I had no idea that was a dude from House of Cards.
Right.
So I think if you were the kind of person who likes to get drunk or stoned and just point at your TV like that picture of DiCaprio, that thing. If you want to recognize a lot of stuff that you liked from the 90s, this is a time capsule from before you had homework all the time. Right? Didn't you like your life before homework? Well, this will take you right back there. And maybe that's why I love it, because I loved it when I was 10 or 12, and I remember being 12.
Yeah.
And this will make you feel like you're 12, especially when Beavis and Butthead call in.
It hits you. It's that perfect little time in your life where it's just like you're just getting over Santa Claus not being real, and you're just not...
When you were 14, John?
Yeah. You're just not quite ready to pay taxes. So it's just that, you're not super innocent anymore, but you're also super naive. It's a hopeful film. It's just so nice. And for anyone that wants to see, Chris Farley being Chris Farley, this is like a highlight reel, right? You see Ernie Hudson being a cop again. It's just these actors cast perfectly into what they're known for and just mixed up together in a bowl of soup. And
this movie is not at anyone's expense. Except the record industry, who used to sign Motown artists for $50.
Yeah.
Right? So fuck the record industry. If you don't like the record industry and you still don't like the music industry in its current form that is giving people a fraction of a penny for 1 million Spotify downloads, maybe this movie is for you. It's an underdog story, and it's about raging against the machine.
Holy shit!
So if you think you like those themes and you like a couple of good fart jokes and you want to see what Steve Buscemi looked like
at his most fuckable. His only fuckable. Yeah.
Airheads is the movie for you.
I think, Judd Nelson's character as the skeevy record producer has a very prescient point, too, that's kind of before its time, where he is willing to sign them and all this, and they're just like, you haven't even heard us play. Like, what the fuck are you doing? He's just like, but you don't understand. You are a phenomena. And isn't that now? Yeah. Isn't that now? It's just like YouTubers are becoming, movie stars with no training just because they have a platform, because, they went out to eat and they filmed themselves talking about it. It is.
Well, that's funny because that's your take on YouTube. But my take on YouTube is the Lone Rangers going directly to the people in the parking lot.
Yeah.
YouTube got rid of all the gatekeepers.
Yeah. Yeah. And this guy's just like, well, you can't buy this kind of marketing. So I don't care if you're playing Baby Shark, like, it's going to work. You are now the face of this movement.
I ain't sharking on no snare drum. I'm just quoting a movie that people probably haven't seen. That's a weird choice.
Zoobity-doo, how was it a movie?
I am Adam Sandler. If you think I can't do this for 30 years, you are wrong.
You're wrong. He hated doing the nude scene, but he said when the nude scene was over, everyone gave him a standing ovation, so he felt really comfortable afterwards.
Aw.
Yeah. And then he did Uncut Gems. He gave everyone an aneurysm.
He's like, I don't like how this feels. I'm only going to wear basketball shorts in public forever.
This is how I win. Yeah.
I don't play basketball, but I wear the shorts. I bet he plays basketball. I don't know anything about Adam Sandler's life. I don't care.
Kevin Garnett
likes the menorah.
Is a black Jew.
Airheads.
All right, yeah, well, that's our take on Airheads. Thank you for listening to a 35-minute plus podcast about a 80-minute movie. Jason, when you're not trying to get your record deal signed, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Jason E. Alt, where I tweet such things as like Airheads was actually 92 minutes.
Fact checked in real time.
You're like, I did all the research, and I'm like, I'm looking at IMDb and it says an hour 32.
Oh man.
You just talk for an hour. I'm like, I think it's pronounced Lehman. I'm basing that entirely on the Lehman brothers.
It's perfect. You could follow this very show at The Cult of Films. You could also follow me at Jon the Host. You can listen to this on the airwaves on your favorite podcasting sites like iTunes. Leave us ratings. Until next time.
Follow me on Twitter so you can get recipes like this drink that tastes like Airheads candy. Thematic.